Now, if you see an image like this and you go, how do they pull out skin tones so beautifully? Don't worry, Uncle Qazi got you. Look at this. We're gonna take it from here to right here in this video. And we're gonna be grading multiple other shots that are even more challenging. So get pumped about that. And also want to give a shout out to Kata Sohas. He's the one that inspired me to do this video. And this goes for all of you guys. Like, please tell me what kind of content you want to see so we can make tailor-made stuff just for you. And if this makes you happy, then do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit the bell icon. Let's jump right in. All right, so we're inside Resolve. We have 3 different shots that I pulled up from Artlist. So obviously I can't give you access to that. And if you have a membership, just download these clips if you want to follow along. So we got this shot, especially look at the colorized waveform, super green, right? Like gunky green. So we need to pull that out, right? Like clean it up. Then when we look at this shot, this is in a pool. And normally anytime if you've shot anything in a pool, it will look something similar to that. And the reason why skin is still retaining so much color is because you're not that deep into the water. So you're picking up a lot of blue all around you, but the sun is still pretty close. That's where the separation is coming from. So obviously a shot like this is a lot easier to separate from a shot like this, where this dude is diving. He is deep into the water, right? So like he's just going to pick up the cast, whatever is around him. And then this is not super far deep, but still deep enough that we have this bias like blue in our image and we can see it in the waveform. So what is that telling us, if anything? Well, the first thing that I want you to do is go to shotdeck.com or Google, and I'm going to type in underwater. When I type in underwater, and let's just go to set underwater and look at what they got going on. Right now I have it set to most popular. So we can start picking up on what's the norm? What is the upper echelon of like what we're trying to create? So what is Hollywood doing and high-end commercials doing with what we got going on? So if I click on this and look at this shot, very interesting. So what you get to see is that most of it is very monochromatic tone. And like I said, if you're deeper into the water, the most realistic colors are going to be monochromatic. Even if you're really deep into the pool, it's going to have this, and that looks right. But then you got shots like this, where you are closer to the water, but still in a really big body of water. So there is a lot of like this bias dark, deeper blues around her, but then she's closer to the surface where she's picking up on that sunlight, and there's a little bit of separation. So what if we use some of these examples to then model our shots? So let's start with this. I just want to click on it. And then I want to go here and look at this shot right here. So I see and I like this cyan version of like what's happening here compared to what we got going on, which just feels kind of gunky. So think of like the light that's coming through this yellowish cyan light. I want my flashlight to have that color and then the rest of the image to kind of fall in here, right? Like I much prefer this color palette than what we got going on here. Now, the number one rule that you have to remember when you're working with underwater footage is that, especially when it's really deep, is that the more you go granular, the more you're going to break up your image. So what am I talking about? What I'm saying is like if I punch in and stay pretty close. By the way, guys, I've already gone ahead and converted these images. So this was from Canon 1DX, and we took it from Rec 709, and it was in Rec 709, and then we're converting it out to a DaVinci Wide Gamut working color space. That's the color space that I like to work in. And then this was shot in Alexa or Ari Amira, actually, and we're converting it from that to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then DaVinci Wide Gamut to 709. And then this one was shot on Red. We're converting it from Red Log 3 G10 to Rec 709, and that's where we're ending up. Okay, so the conversion is just pretty simple. If you want to see a video on color spaces, stuff like that, it's on my channel. You can check it out. There should be a link in the description as well. All right, let's go to that shot and let's just look at this. And what was I talking about when I said you don't want to do too many granular changes, because this is what's going to happen. So let's just say if I go here and I want my gain to be, let's say, warm like this. And then I want my gamma to be somewhat like this. And then I want my lift to be a little bit like that. If I punch in, you can start seeing what I'm doing. I start to crack up this image, like right around here, okay? And if I pull out, you can really clearly start seeing what's happening right around here. See, this wasn't there before. It was very smooth. And now I started to like break up this image. See, like around here, I'm breaking up this image. And that's what's happening because I'm doing too much twist and turn to my image, which is already very fragile. And that's the reason why when you see the pros work on underwater footage, they're just really gently taking it to that one place. Like they're not creating this artificial like thing that you would see an amateur would do. They would just try so hard to make the skin tones look like you're outside of the water. That makes no sense. It doesn't even look realistic or good. So then what you want to do is I would go to my HDR palette offset, right? Because this is a very realistic response to what we're trying to do. It's going to latch and keep our black points pretty consistent. And what I want to do is I want to go here and I want to take some of that. I want to just start driving it to that blue place. Like right now, we're already there, right? We're almost there. And then the one more thing that I would do is like, I'm going to go under color slice and still being very gentle. I want to take my cyan because that's like where all the magic is happening. And I want to start pulling it back a little bit, like somewhere around here. And now if I see the two, they're looking really, really good. And then I can just take this and turn it just a little bit, not too much, okay? So actually not even that much. Even something like that, okay? And just like look at the image that we're starting to create. And if I pull this down now, and this is before and this is after, and you see we even cleaned it up better than this. Even this was breaking up a little bit. Now this is like a lot more even and cleaner. And just in general, like it just feels like a very clean, classy image, okay? I mean, even just like look at the bubbles. Before, this gunky green, and then after, we cleaned it up quite a bit, okay? When it comes to contrast, don't mess with it too much. This is why, again, when you look at these examples, the contrast is going to be very, very gentle in most of these. See, it's very gentle. Even like when you're close to the top or you're really deep into the water. I mean, just look at all of these, okay? And use this as your reference, as your guide when you're trying to create fun looks. Can we take it more toward that blue? I mean, we absolutely can. I mean, I can just take this and take it deeper to something like that. And now if I go here, once again, I want to kind of just go to my initial shot that I picked out. And if I go here, we're a lot closer to that. This is where we started. This is where we ended up. Look at our cylinder is looking so much cleaner, right? And we even added a little bit gentler contrast. So our roll-offs are cleaner now. And I'm leaving it there. And I love the flashlight being this color, then this color, and just like fighting with the rest of my image. And think about this. Right now, I am working on it in the highest resolution, in the least compression. Now, if I start cooking it up and putting it on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, I mean, this is going to break the F apart, this right here. This will hold. So this is our first technique. And I want to show you different methods and different tools to achieve it because they're going to be working on a bunch of different scenarios. So you need to know different approaches. There is never, when it comes to color grading, one size fits all. Okay, so just remember that. Now let's go to this shot. And then what can we use for this one? Even if I go to something like that, I would say, I mean, one, we're already kind of close there. I mean, the thing that just doesn't sit well with me is like, I'm looking at his skin tones and I just want to have a little bit more warmth there, right? And once I clean that up, I feel like it's going to bring the right amount of warmth from the light. And then we will deal with like the rest of the image, right? So like if I go here, if we go to our HDR palette and I start just like moving some of it to even something like that. And if I do before and after, I mean, this starts to look pretty good, but I think maybe it's a little too strong. So even something like that, it's very, very gentle. And if I go before and after, I feel like another thing that we can benefit from is a little bit of like contrast. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in my primaries. I'm going to take my gamma and I'm going to pull it down a little bit, not too much. So even something like that, and it creates like the right amount of drama. And then this sort of gunk that we're seeing here, if we want to clean this up, it's pretty simple. I want to go in my log, and right here, I just want to subtract some of the green in my shadows, and that's what this is, okay? So if I go here and start subtracting it, like look how easy it was to remove that. And obviously now it's like affecting the rest of my image as well. So if I want to control that, I can just simply do that by going to my lower range and start pulling it back. So I only affect the low end and I leave everything else as is. And if I do before and after, I mean, it's starting to look pretty good. And we're starting to create a little bit of separation. So we have like warmer tones up top and we have cooler tones at the bottom, which like goes really, really well with what we're trying to do. And speaking of like controlling the top end, we can actually go to our primaries color bars. And now by using my gain, I can just add a little bit more warmth in there. So what if I just want to add a little bit more red up there? Again, it's such a gentle thing that we're doing. We're not going crazy with it because we don't want to. We want to keep it pretty natural. Let's look at some more examples, right? Because ultimately what it is that in an ideal world, we should let it live in this like yellow-ish green world if we want to. Like there is no right and wrong. What you need to figure out is like deeper you go, the darker it gets, closer we are, the more natural the colors are going to be, especially when you're working with skin tones, right? So now overall, we can come to the HDR palette offset and we can start driving it wherever we want to go. So even something like this, we come up with like a very interesting look. If we want to go to like what we're seeing here, we just went there very easily. But the little nuance changes that we made to clean up the greens on the bottom end and then add a little bit warmth on the top end was very necessary. And we did it in a very surgical way than just like using our balls on our trackpad and like just moving everything around on our control surface. Because as I mentioned earlier in the first example, you have to be very delicate when you're working with underwater footage. It doesn't matter if it's shot with Canon 1DX or if it's shot on red. And this would be a pretty good scenario for this. And it looks good for the entire thing. Now, this could be applied on the entire sequence. This is great. This is looking very close to what we saw here, right? And now let's go to this, and you guys are going to love what I'm going to show you here, okay? Now, I want to take a second to tell you something exciting. Right now, we're doing a Black Friday sale, so you can get 50% off on the best look development tool for Resolve, Qazi's Toolkit, the entire bundle that includes 8 different tools for specific tasks. Or if you want to level up your color grading game and become a pro, then you can join 6,500 plus students and an exclusive community on Facebook by getting Freelance Colorist Masterclass, 30 plus hours of content, and you have lifetime access to it. And you get 50% off on that. Links to both are in the description, so check it out. Do not wait. The offer will end soon. Let's get back to the video. So let's go here and pull up. Let's model this, pull up this shot. So we want to kind of just like get this, because the idea is I don't want to unrealistically break apart like my skin from the rest of the background. And like I said, like, you know, pull her out to the point where it just feels like she is outside of the pool. That's not the point, right? A lot of people do qualifiers and they just go nuts. We don't want to do any of that. But what do we want to do? So what I want to do this time, I want to go in my custom curves and I want to break this chain. And what are we seeing here? Like this just tells us everything in our parade, what's happening. So what I want to do, the first thing is I want to lift my reds up, okay? Because I want to bring it closer to what's happening with my greens and blues. So if I just take my red and I start lifting it up to something like this even, all of a sudden, like, look at how much I've pulled out my skin. I mean, just look at the skin tones right here, where the image was sitting and where it is now. And even like there is now, if you look at the anchors on the bottom end, we actually have a pure white compared to what we had before, okay? And like, look at what we did here in our histogram, how much we pulled up our image. So that's a good start, right? Now what can we do? Can I take my green and just pull it down? I mean, I'm looking at my parade, right? So like pull it down a little bit. Then what about if I take my blue and do the same thing and just kind of pull it down closer to that? Okay. What if I take my red and now grab it from this point and kind of just like split the difference so it's not too crazy? Okay. This is not looking bad. Now, the one thing that we need at this point, I can go back in my blue channel and just kind of put it back a little bit because overall there's going to be more blue in the image than anything else. But even something like that, we're looking so much better, right? But ready to have your mind blown. But I need to do one thing before we get to that point, which is adding just a little bit more contrast. I mean, look at this shot, right? It just has enough, and that's going to help us with a little bit more saturation or separation, I should say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my 18% gray point. And because I'm working in DaVinci Wide Gamut, the magic number is 335. Okay. If you want to see my video on contrast, I just put out a banger. Check it out. Link is going to be in the description. You can see the thumbnail on the screen. Look for that video and check it. Like, it's going to change your freaking life. Now that we did that, I can just go in my contrast and start pulling this a little bit. So even if I do something like that, I think that's a bit much. I can just come back a little bit to something like this. It's not bad. Now I want to go in my HDR palette and just drop it a little bit. I feel like it's too hot. It's too bright. And I want to just control that with my overall exposure. This is not bad. This is better. 0.5, half a stop. Oh my God, we're looking freaking golden. This is where we started. This is where we are. This is great. Now, this is where the magic happens. I'm going to go to my red channel. I'm going to select my red channel. I'm going to go here and click on her skin right here, this point. Now what I'm going to do, see, it created this point right here. Personally, I'm going to create it with my panel, but you can just control it with your mouse. Look at this. And I'm going to put it somewhere around here. Remember I said I want to create a realistic look. I'm going to go to my green channel. I'm going to click in the same area, and I'm going to see what I need to do. So I'm just going to add a little bit of magenta, and then I'm going to go to my blue. I'm going to click right here, and then I'm just going to keep it somewhere around here. Again, we're trying to keep it realistic because we're underwater, okay? So look at this, these minute little changes and what we ended up with. We thought this was good. Remember, compared to like the other shots in here, we thought this was good. And now we ended up with that. And now if I look at this to this, I mean, look at that, what we got going on, right? I mean, obviously the overall saturation is a little different, but other than that, we are looking really, really good. I mean, at this point, I actually still want to go to my green and pull it down because I feel like this is even a closer match to what's happening. And then can I just go here in my overall saturation and just dial it back a little bit more? Can I crank my contrast? No, not really. I don't want to do that. But what if I can go in my HDR palette and just drop it a little bit more, maybe like 3/4 of a stop, 3/4 of a stop? This is so much better. So just look at this. This is where we started. And this is where we ended up. And we don't want to push it. We just don't want to do more. We just want to stay here. Even if you just feel like, oh man, if this is looking so good with this much contrast, like what happens if I just crank my contrast like this? It doesn't look good. It looks cheap. It looks bad. Respect the environment. Grade your shot around your environment, especially when it's underwater. So these are the secrets to getting absolutely banger images when you have underwater footage. So there you go, quick and easy. Let me know what kind of techniques you've used in the past. Was it something similar to what I showed you or something completely different? Did you find this video helpful? If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you have any specific requests for content, drop them in the comment section below. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, fam.